everyone, my name's Vanessa, and today I want to share something deeply personal that I think a lot of people can relate to, or at least a lot of girls who maybe grew up in the 90s like I did. So I wasn't diagnosed autistic until I was 37 years old, which was, it was just last November, like right before Christmas. So for most of my life, I felt strange and out of place. I was always the weird girl. I felt like everyone around me looked at me like the weird girl who didn't fit in. And I didn't really know why. I didn't have the language for it or the framework. And honestly, I don't think anyone around me did either. So this is the story of how I fell through the cracks, how my niece and nephew helped me finally understand myself, and what it feels like to get an autism diagnosis as an adult woman after decades of confusion, misdiagnosis, and burnout. For as long as I can remember, I felt like I didn't fit in. I was the quiet kid, painfully shy, awkward, and always on the outside looking in. I could speak, but I often chose not to because I was so shy and scared of any social interaction, and I think adults actually assumed that I couldn't speak. But the truth is, I had this huge internal world that was super imaginative, creative, and constantly thinking. I just didn't have the social tools to express it. Eye contact was physically painful for me, not just uncomfortable, painful. It's like when I was being forced to look someone in the eye, it was like, I don't know, I was giving them some sort of connection to my soul or something. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but it just felt like an invasion. Most adults didn't really understand that and kind of saw it as disrespect, and I often heard, "Look at me in the eye when I'm talking to you." So I learned early on that something was wrong, even though I didn't know what. School was complicated. Academically, I excelled. I loved learning. But socially, it was terrifying. I dreaded going to school. I would cry, hyperventilate, and beg my mom not to go. And no one could explain why I felt that way, including me. After school, I'd come home, completely melt down from overwhelm. I missed school constantly because the anxiety was so intense, and I couldn't quite explain why I was so terrified. Like, my mom would ask me, why are you so scared? Why don't you want to go? And I couldn't really put it into words. I just knew that I was exhausted by the end of the day. Looking back, these were all signs of autism. But at that time, no one was looking for autism in quiet little girls who got straight A's. I had intense interests. I mean, the kind that took over my whole world. I watched all the Shirley Temple movies growing up, and I just had to have tap shoes and wear the little dresses and sing on a good ship Lollipop all the time, and I had to put curlers in my hair, so I had ringlets. I mean, I was lucky because I had ringlets when I was really little naturally, but as I got older I had to put them in, which actually Shirley Temple had to do too. I also loved Barney and later on Harry Potter. Even in high school, I had to have a Harry Potter lunchbox, I had a Harry Potter watch, and I read all the books, and I thought that Ron was like my boyfriend. I also got super into TV and movies. Like, I spent hours and hours and hours in my room with my little TV VHS combo, just watching Friends, watching just anything I could get my hands on. I watched movies over and over again until the VHS tapes started getting worn out and all fuzzy. I wasn't just watching these for fun either. I feel like I was studying them. I approached it like a case study in human behavior. I was trying to understand people, their emotions, social cues, why they made certain faces and reacted certain ways. I don't know if this was all conscious, but it definitely seemed like everyone on TV had a much easier time at life than I did, and had a much easier time at talking to each other than I did, and seemed to like have some sort of secret to the world that they got when they were born, and I just didn't get that. I also had some sensory issues. I felt very exposed, just like out in a big room, or I often hid in my closet or a cupboard because I like tight spaces. They made me feel safe. I was like, I can feel all the walls around me. I also kind of rocked on the floor a lot when I was little. I would get really overwhelmed by just sometimes even just music. Small background noises seemed like super loud to me. But again, no one was connecting all these dots. Even as a young person, I was already experiencing autistic burnout, but no one really knew that term back then. I started doing SI behaviors because I had no tools to cope with the anxiety and with feeling constantly overwhelmed. Instead of understanding the root cause, I was unfortunately put on a bunch of antidepressants. Like, I think I tried them all. And this was when I was young, like 13, 14, back in the early 2000s. I guess they just doled out antidepressants. Nowadays, they don't do that like so much unless you're over the age of 21 for very good reasons. I was also sent to counselor after counselor. I was hospitalized a bunch of times. I was labeled as, the weird, troubled child and it was very hard in school. I missed a lot of school because my parents were constantly trying to do, I guess, interventions and straighten me out. And at one point, my grandma thought I was like possessed. I'm like, nope. Apparently, that was really hard though. I felt really alienated, and that just increased my feelings of being different, of feeling like there was something innately wrong with me. It was tough. Then in early adulthood, while I was still experiencing a lot of anxiety and overwhelm and going through relationship issues with my husband, I was then, labeled as having bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder, which, I'm not saying there's something wrong with that, but it wasn't what I really had. And then I was treated for those things aggressively, and the treatments they just seemed to make everything worse. I just felt fundamentally broken, like there was something deeply wrong with me that no one could fix. I was completely isolated, alienated, and totally misunderstood. And the saddest part is that I know I wasn't the only one. There has to be so many women and young girls that have this kind of journey. And in fact, before I got diagnosed and started to think maybe I had this, I came across an article about women with autism and girls with autism, and it was like this huge light bulb went off, and it was like somebody's describing my life. And so that was really interesting, and maybe I'll go into that more another time. So what was the turning point in my life? So after my sister got married and had her kids, my nephew was diagnosed with autism first, and he had those kind of stereotypical male kind of autism traits that you think of. He had some sort of speech regression, hand flapping, stimming, and intense interest in like dinosaurs and trains, which is really cool, but also just very what you think of when you think of a male with autism. Then his sister was born, and she was also diagnosed. And because her brother was already autistic, I think she was watched a lot more closely to see if she had any of these traits, and this is where everything changed. So my sister, who grew up with me, she saw my struggles firsthand. She is 2 years older than me, And so she got that unique perspective of sort of watching her little sister develop and grow up, and she really started to notice with my niece that she had a lot of the same, I guess, behaviors and kind of similar personality to what I had growing up. And then I think something clicked with her that, maybe Vanessa is also autistic. And that's how my journey kind of started into looking into it for myself. So my sister was just noticing that the way my niece played and how she communicated, and she was just super silly and kind of seemed to be in a world of her own and created her own little language, which I didn't have a total language, or it wasn't, I guess me and my niece didn't really have a language that was so much with words. It was much more, I don't know, it's just, and even now we're super close, me and my niece, because I feel like we can communicate without talking most of the time, and we just laugh and laugh and laugh, and other people are like, what's going on? But one day my sister called me up and she was like, oh my gosh, my daughter reminds me so much of you. I think you might be autistic too. And it was like someone cracked open this door and that I didn't even know existed, and thank God. So I started to really pursue a diagnosis after that. So it still took me time to start to go after a diagnosis. I didn't really know where to start. So I just started on Google, and like I said earlier, I came across an article that talked about girls with autism, how they present so much different than boys, how we mask a lot of our behaviors because as women, we're taught that we need to be the caregivers, and we need to be feminine, and we need to be quiet, and we need to have more social interaction with peers and our friends, and I guess that makes us more prone to masking. So it took me several months, but I looked into a place where I could get diagnosed, and the diagnostic process was also pretty emotional. It was validating and confusing and healing all at once, and it took several hours with a bunch of interviews with my family members, and maybe I'll do a separate video on that another time. So after the whole process, I got a call from the clinician, and she finally said, yes, you have autism, and you have level 2 autism, and because there's 3 levels, and basically they're based off of how much assistance you need in your daily life. So she was actually surprised because I was super relieved, and she was like, you want to be autistic? And I was actually yeah, because it gave me an answer. It gave me an answer that I didn't need to be ashamed of myself. I didn't need to be afraid. I felt relieved because for the first time in my life, I realized there wasn't something innately wrong with me. I'm just wired differently, and sometimes in a very beautiful way that makes the world seem huge and lets me take in a lot of information. I'm really good at pattern recognition. I'm super sensitive and have a lot of empathy, things that are sometimes really difficult but can be a blessing. And so I was like, yes, I am autistic, and I can just embrace that, although I'm still learning how to do that. I'm learning to unmask all the masking I've done for 37 years, which is a really difficult thing to do. Sometimes I'm like, is this how I really feel? Is this how I really want to behave? Because I feel this urge. I just for a while I just wanted to eat frozen grapes all day long every day for months and months, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And so I'm just learning my little quirks and just how to be more myself and appreciate myself as I am, and not trying to put myself in a box and fit into this mold that everybody else says I have to fit into. I can appreciate my strengths. I'm extremely creative. I love art. I love crafts. I like to decorate. I'm a really strong writer. I'm not very good at math, and that's okay. Although I kind of approach writing like math, and like grammar is just a math problem to be solved, and switching around words just can change everything. I see the world differently, and that's a gift. I've also learned to accept my challenges. I am terrible with directions. I cannot tell you which way I'm facing ever. You can't tell me, hey, Vanessa, turn north, turn west, I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Just completely alien to me. I'm not the best of drivers, which was really embarrassing for me most of my life, but now I'm like, that's okay. I find driving super overstimulating. You have to pay attention to a million things at once. It can be noisy. It can be really, make you anxious, or you can't control what other people are doing. It's just sensory overwhelm for me. Also, I struggle to make friends. I have one or two really close friends, which is very common with autistic people, because I really appreciate authentic relationships, and I'm introverted as well, so I don't need as much social interaction, but I do really, I need it, but I also really value my alone time. But I do love connecting with people. That's could be a misconception. Most autistic people really do want human connections. We just don't always know how to go about making them. And so here I am trying to accept myself. Driving is overrated anyways, because pretty soon we'll all be in self-driving cars. So who cares, right? So thank you for listening to this very condensed version of my autism diagnosis story. There's so much more to talk about: masking, burnout, relationships, creativity, sensory issues, misdiagnosis, how boys and girls, men and women present differently, what it's like in education for us, what it's like in the workforce for us, and hopefully I'll be making videos on all those different topics, as well as my chronic illness journey. So yeah, thank you for listening. And if you're an adult who thinks you might have autism, or if you've always felt different, please drop a comment below. There's people out there who have gone through what you've gone through, and you're not alone. Also, please subscribe to my channel and like this video, because that helps me get my message across. Hopefully helps me help others feel less lonely. We all need that, especially in this digital age. I'm hopeful that I can keep doing videos, and I'm sorry that they're not like the best quality, or the best editing, or the best sound, or the best lighting. I'm literally new at this and doing my best. But thank you for joining me on my platform. It's called Chronically Dismissed. I also have a blog at chronicallydismissed.com, so be sure to check that out. Bye!